Well, have you ever burned a backup plan? I'm talking about really burning it and not just putting it aside for later. I'm talking about your safety net, your plan B, your just-in-case scenario, and lighting it on fire so there's absolutely no going back. Elisha did. God called through the prophet Elijah, and Elisha didn't just say yes, he lit a bonfire, oxen and all, plow wood for kindling, and a backup plan for a barbecue. Picture this. Elisha's out there plowing with 12 yoke of oxen. That's 24 total. That's not a hobby farm. That's an agricultural empire. That's generational wealth. That's the kind of operation that employs half the village. Elisha's probably the son that everyone points to and says, now there's a good young man with his head on straight. That's a good family. That's good business. There's a good future. Then Elijah walks by, and this wild-haired prophet, fresh from Mount Carmel, still carrying the scent of smoke on his clothes, he doesn't say a word, just walks up and throws his mantle on Elijah's shoulders. Now, Elisha knows what this means. This is a call. This is an invitation to leave everything behind and follow God into the unknown. So what does he do? I mean, he could have been practical at that moment. He could have said, wow, Elijah, quite an honor. Let me think about it. Maybe keep the oxen as a backup, just in case this prophet thing doesn't pan out. But that's not what happens. Elisha runs to Elijah and says, let me kiss my parents goodbye. And Elijah says, go back. This is your choice. Choose freely. And Elisha chooses. He goes back to all of his oxen, all 24 of them, and he kills them. And he takes the wooden yoke and the plow, and he uses it for fuel as the fire, and he cooks up this massive farewell feast saying, this is it, folks. I'm done farming. I'm burning all the bridges. He didn't keep just one ox, just in case. He didn't save the plow in storage, and he didn't leave himself an exit strategy. He burned it all. And as the flames are dancing higher now, the orange tongues of flame are licking at that darkening sky, and the whole village has now gathered, and the kids are just wide-eyed, the adults are whispering among themselves, and the elders are just shaking their heads. This is either the biggest waste that they've ever witnessed, or it's the most faithful act that they've ever seen. And Elisha, he's not looking back. He's not second guessing. He's not calculating. He's not calculating what he's losing. And he looks at Elijah, this weathered old man of God who dared to interrupt his perfectly planned life. And he's smiling. Because somewhere in that moment between the call and the bonfire, Elisha figured out something the rest of us spend our whole lives trying to learn. You can't embrace God's calling while your fists are held around your own dreams. Think about it. If Elisha had just kept one ox, that just-in-case ox, where would his mind be during those long days of following Elijah through the wilderness? He'd be thinking about that ox, wondering if it was properly fed and being cared for, calculating how much money he was losing every day that he was away, planning his exit strategy for when this whole prophet thing didn't work out. But with no oxen left, no plow in storage, and no farming empire to fall back on, Elisha is completely free. Free to focus on what God was teaching him. Free to embrace the adventure without looking over his shoulder. Free to become who God was calling him to be. And the text says that he arose and went after Elijah and assisted him. Just like that. No hesitation, no regret, no backup plan. And isn't that what freedom is for? Not to keep options open, not to hedge our bets, but to follow without looking back. And here's a thing that I find fascinating. Elisha didn't know what he was signing up for. Elijah didn't give him a job description, didn't give him that benefits package, no organizational chart, certainly no 5-year strategic plan, just a follow me. Can you imagine trying to sell that career move to your financial advisor today? So Elisha, tell me about this new opportunity you have. Well, I'm going to follow this prophet around the countryside. Excellent. What's the salary? I don't know. Okay, there's benefits, right? Like health insurance or retirement plan. I don't think so. Certainly there's job security. Actually, prophets tend to get in trouble with the government around here. Right. Well, exactly what will you be doing? Well, whatever God tells me to do. And you burned your farming operation for this. Every last ox. That's either complete foolishness or complete faith. And the beautiful thing is from the outside, they often look exactly the same. But Elisha understood something about freedom that most of us miss. Real freedom isn't about having more choices. Real freedom is making the right choice and then having the courage to eliminate all the other options. This is what freedom is for. But most of us, we don't burn our backup plans. Most of us collect them like insurance policies. We're taught to think of freedom as freedom from rules and freedom from limits, from commitments, especially from anyone telling us what to do. And when God's calling gets uncomfortable or costly, we want freedom from that as well. Paul gets this tension. Writing to the Galatians, he declares, "For freedom, Christ has set us free." But then he immediately warns us about 2 traps. That first trap, thinking freedom means doing whatever you want. Paul says, do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh. And Paul lists what he calls the works of the flesh: sexual immorality, jealousy, anger, quarrels, divisions, envy, drunkenness. On the surface, these might look like freedom, but Paul says they're slavery. So you want to look and see what slavery is. Look at the person who can't control their temper. They're not free. They're enslaved to their anger. Every criticism becomes a personal attack. That's not freedom, that's being controlled. You want to see slavery? Look at the person driven by envy, that can't celebrate others' victories because they're too busy comparing. They can't rest because, well, someone might get ahead. That's not freedom, that's exhaustion. You want to see slavery? Look at the person who has to win every argument or one-up you. They can't let anything slide. Every family dinner becomes a debate. Every text message gets analyzed for all those hidden meanings, and they can't enjoy relationships because they're just too busy keeping score. That's not freedom. That's being imprisoned by the need to be right. You want to see slavery? Look at the person consumed by jealousy. They can't trust their spouse to have lunch with a coworker. They can't enjoy their friend's success because it feels like their own failure. And they can't post on social media without wondering who got more likes. That's not freedom. That's being tormented by suspicion. But then Paul lists what real freedom looks like. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Now that's freedom. The freedom to love when it's not returned, to find joy when circumstances are difficult, to make peace instead of winning arguments, to be patient when everything's moving too slowly, to be kind when kindness isn't deserved. True freedom comes from God's Spirit working in us. Not the freedom to do whatever we want, the freedom to be who God created us to be. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. That is what freedom is for. But this kind of freedom is costly. It requires commitment. It requires burning backup plans, and Jesus knows this better than anyone. And Luke tells us, when the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. The Greek literally means that he made his face like flint. This isn't casual travel. This is Jesus choosing to walk toward the cross. And he knows what awaits him in Jerusalem, betrayal and arrest and crucifixion. Still, he sets his face like flint toward Jerusalem. This is freedom expressed as commitment. Nobody's forcing him. This is his calling. This is what his freedom is for. And as he's walking this road, people want to follow, but listen to what happens when they try to commit. First, someone says, "I will go wherever you go." And Jesus responds, "Foxes have holes, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." He's saying, do you understand what you're signing up for? This isn't comfort and security. This is sacrifice and uncertainty. And then Jesus says to someone, "Follow me." And the person responds, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." Sounds pretty reasonable. But scholars tell us that the father probably wasn't dead yet. Let me bury my father meant let me wait until my father dies and I get the inheritance. It was about waiting for financial security before committing. Jesus says, let the dead bury their own dead, but go and proclaim the kingdom. He's saying there will always be reasons to wait, but the kingdom can't wait for your convenience. And another person says, "I will follow you, Lord, but first let me say farewell to those at home." Sounds polite. But remember Elisha? When he said goodbye, he did it with the bonfire. He made it final. And maybe this person wants to keep the door open. And Jesus responds, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." If you're plowing and you keep on looking over your shoulder, you're not going to get a straight row. Any farmer knows this. Back before GPS, a crooked row was the mark of an amateur. And no one wants to show up at the co-op and have old Harvey squint over his coffee cup at you and say, "Your rows look like you were following a drunk snake home." Following Jesus requires the same focus. Looking forward, not backward. Commitment, not hesitation. And the invitation is costly. Freedom to follow Jesus means not looking back, not because the past is bad, but because the future is calling. True freedom is not comfort, but commitment. Not ease, but engagement. Not the right to do whatever we want, but the power to do what we're called to do. Hand to the plow, no turning back. This is what freedom is for. So here we are. Christ has set us free from earning God's love, free from being enslaved to our fears, free from controlling every outcome, free from needing everyone's approval. But what are we free for? Well, we're free to follow. We're free to love. We're free to live spirit-filled lives overflowing with love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The question is, what is your plow? What is your backup plan keeping you from following freely? Maybe it's the need to control outcomes. You just want to follow God, but only with guarantees. You want the whole roadmap before you commit. Maybe it's the fear of what people will think. You want to follow God, but only with guarantees. You want that whole roadmap. You want to live differently, be generous, and show radical love. But what will the family say? What will the coworkers say? Maybe it's about financial security. You really want to be generous, you do, but what if you don't have enough? You want to follow God's calling, but what about retirement? Maybe it's the comfort of playing it safe. You really want to make a difference, but it's just easier to stay in your lane. Maybe it's holding on to those past hurts. You want to forgive, but they certainly don't deserve it. You want to move forward, but you're not done being angry yet. Maybe it's the excuse that you're not ready yet. You need some more time, you need more preparation, more certainty. You'll follow God when you're more mature, more stable, more sure. But here's what Elisha teaches. There's never a convenient time to burn your backup plans. There's never a perfect moment to follow God freely. Elisha had 12 yoke of oxen, 24 oxen total, and that's not just a backup plan, that's a whole backup career. And he burned it all. Not because he was reckless, but because he was free to trust that God's calling was worth more than his security. Freedom isn't the right to do whatever you want. It's the gift that lets you follow without looking back. So the bonfire's ready. The wood's all stacked up. The match is in your hand. So what are you willing to burn? Your need for control? Your fear of failure? What are you willing to burn? Your hunger for approval, your attachment to comfort? What do you need to burn? Your resentment, your pride, your excuses. This is what freedom is for. Not to make us comfortable but committed, not safe but faithful, not to give us an easy life but a meaningful life. Not to let us do whatever we want, but to empower us to do what we're called to do. So the match is in your hands. What needs to burn? Amen.